You hear about families that they have deep, dark secrets and they have skeletons in their closet.
How does someone go from planning a fresh start to blowing up their own life in the most public way possible? Did Gypsy Rose really cheated right after having a baby? Let's find out, shall we? It started with one screenshot, then another, and before anyone even had time to process it, the internet was flooded with messages that looked way too personal to ignore. What shocked people wasn't just that Gypsy Rose had been texting her ex-husband Ryan Anderson again, it was what she was sending him. The first image that leaked was a glam selfie, the kind of picture you only send when you want someone to notice. And according to Ryan, that photo wasn't just a random felt cute moment, it was the opener. Right after that, she allegedly sent him a photo of her newborn daughter, not to share a milestone, not to reconnect, but to prove that he wasn't the father. And that's where people stopped and went, hold on, why is she even sending him anything at all? She wasn't single. She wasn't co-parenting with the man. She was living with her boyfriend Ken, raising their baby, and talking publicly about wanting another child. Yet here she was, sliding back into conversations that looked messy from the very first line. Fans immediately zoomed in on the timing. This wasn't some old exchange resurfacing from before she found love again. These messages happened after the baby was born, after all the interviews about building a new life, after she promised she'd moved on. And the part that hit hardest? Ryan said that she didn't send the baby picture first. She started with herself, dolled up, posing, reminding him exactly what he used to have. That one detail flipped the entire internet upside down because it didn't feel like an innocent check-in. It felt intentional, calculated, almost like she wanted to test the waters before anything else. But the real chaos was only just beginning, because this wasn't the part that made fans question the whole relationship. It was what came next. The moment the screenshots started circulating, people expected Ryan Anderson to deny everything and disappear, but he didn't. Instead, he doubled down and told his side of the story. And honestly, it made the situation look even worse for Gypsy. According to Ryan, those messages didn't come out of nowhere. He claims she reached out first, bringing him back into her life before he'd even fully processed the divorce. And he didn't describe the exchange like it was some harmless, "How are you?" conversation. He said she sent those glam selfies to show him how much she'd changed, almost like she wanted validation from the last man she walked away from. But the part that really made people stop scrolling was his explanation about the baby picture. Ryan said Gypsy sent it to him to prove he wasn't the father. And the internet immediately asked the obvious question, why would she think she needed to prove anything at all? It didn't make sense. She was with Ken, building a family with him, and publicly saying how excited she was about motherhood. Yet here she was, scrambling to reassure her ex about a child who had nothing to do with him. The reasoning felt off, and people online picked up on that instantly. Instead of calming things down, the message only raised more questions. Questions nobody knew how to answer. And Ryan didn't stop there. He said the whole thing felt planned, like she sent the glam photo first to soften him up before dropping the baby picture. If that were true, the conversation wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. Fans were already suspicious, but hearing Ryan describe the exchange in his own words pushed everything into a new level of messy. Because if his timeline was right, this wasn't just random contact. This was Gypsy reaching out behind Ken's back, testing boundaries, and pulling her ex into her new life when she didn't need to. But even that wasn't the biggest shock, because right after Ryan finished explaining his side, something surfaced that made the entire internet rethink everything they thought they knew about this situation. And it all started with one law no one saw coming. Just when people thought the leaked messages were messy enough on their own, Gypsy dropped a detail on life after lockup that instantly reignited the drama. In the middle of a casual conversation with Ken, she explained that when their daughter was born, the hospital automatically gave the baby Ryan Anderson's last name. Not Ken's, not hers, Ryan's. And the reason? A Louisiana law that most people didn't even know existed. According to Gypsy, the state automatically assigns the baby the last name of the mother's legal husband at the time of birth. And even though she had moved on, remarried, and rebuilt her life, she was still legally tied to Ryan on paper when she delivered. So their daughter, by law, became an Anderson the moment she entered the world. Ken's face in that scene said everything. He tried to play it cool, but the disappointment was written all over him, and fans noticed. Because it wasn't just the name, it was the timing. This twist came out right when the rumors about her messaging Ryan were spreading again, and suddenly everything felt connected in a way nobody wanted to admit. People online started asking the uncomfortable questions. Why didn't she finalize the paperwork sooner? Why was she still in contact with her ex during the pregnancy? Why did she only bring this up once fans started noticing little inconsistencies? The whole thing felt too convenient, too perfectly aligned with the timeline of her secret messages. And even though she explained that they'd fixed the baby's last name after the paternity test, the damage was already done. The internet had latched onto the idea that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a simple legal mix-up. Maybe it was a sign that her past relationship had never fully ended in the first place. For Ken, this revelation became the first public crack in the image of a brand new family. For everyone watching, it was proof that Gypsy's story still had twists no one expected. And for Gypsy, it marked the moment people realized the situation was about to unravel even further. Because right after this legal bombshell dropped, something even more eyebrow-raising happened. Old messages resurfaced, and they painted a picture nobody could ignore. Just when the last name twist was starting to settle, the internet did what it always does. It dug deeper, and what resurfaced next was the moment everything tipped from suspicious to undeniable. Because people unearthed older screenshots between Gypsy and Ryan that showed their conversations weren't nearly as innocent as she once made them seem. These messages didn't sound like two people who were fully done with each other. They sounded like a door left halfway open. One screenshot showed Ryan saying, "Baby, you can go do that," followed by a warning to get the money off first. It was confusing, chaotic, and out of nowhere. But then Gypsy fired back with a message that sounded frustrated, almost fed up. It seems like that's all you care about. And that's when the conversation took an even stranger turn. Suddenly, Ryan switched into apology mode, softening his tone, trying to smooth things over. Then he dropped the line that sent the internet spiraling. He asked her if she was thinking about leaving Ken soon. That's not a question you ask someone who's happily moved on. And it's definitely not something you say unless you feel like the door is already cracked open. The implication alone was enough to make people wonder what Gypsy had been telling him behind the scenes. But the part that sent fans into full detective mode was Gypsy's own messages. In one of them, she allegedly said she was stepping away from social media because the DNA test wasn't adding up. That line alone caused a week-long frenzy. People tried interpreting it every possible way. Was she confused? Was she panicking? Was she trying to hide something from Ken? And then she admitted something else. Ken checks her messages, which meant any secret conversation needed a cover. That's when Ryan supposedly told her to make up a fake number and claim it was an old cellmate texting her. Yes, an old cellmate. The internet immediately asked why she would even entertain something that shady, especially after she narrowly avoided trouble with her parole officer for being too active online. All of this, every screenshot, every line, painted a picture of two people who had no business communicating this way. Not if she wanted a stable family, not if she wanted her new life to work, and definitely not if she wanted the internet to believe she had truly moved on. Quick pause. If you're into the tea so far, like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment with your take, and share this with a friend who lives for celebrity drama. All right, back to the story. But these resurfaced messages did more than expose a sketchy conversation. They reminded everyone of something much bigger, something she's been carrying for years. And that leads straight into the next part, the pattern she can't seem to escape. The more people looked at the resurfaced messages, the more a familiar pattern started to show. It wasn't just about the texts or the timing or even the baby's last name. It was the fact that this wasn't the first time Gypsy had jumped from one relationship straight into another without ever stopping to breathe. And once people pointed it out, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The moment she walked out of prison in 2023, she almost immediately married Ryan Anderson, the same man she barely knew outside of monitored visits and letters. No slow dating period, no adjustment to freedom, just a full-speed dive into marriage because it felt safe and familiar. But as soon as real life hit, everything started falling apart. The version of Ryan she knew behind bars didn't match the version she lived with on the outside. And instead of working through it, she pulled away, filed for divorce, and left faster than anyone expected. Then, barely months later, she was right back with her ex-fiancé Ken, acting like the entire marriage had been a long, confusing detour. No pause, no reset, no real time alone. It was a cycle all over again, choosing someone new before fully letting go of the last person, repeating the same emotional loop with different faces. And when you look at her life through that lens, the constant back and forth starts to make more sense. Gypsy spent her entire childhood isolated, controlled and kept from forming any real attachments outside of her mother. She never had the chance to learn what a stable relationship looks like. She never experienced the slow, natural progression most people take for granted. Her whole life was either cling tightly or lose everything. But here's the part that really hit fans. Understanding where it comes from doesn't erase the damage it causes now. Her childhood may explain the chaos, but it doesn't excuse the choices she's making as an adult, choices that keep blowing up every relationship she touches. And as people started talking about this pattern, the situation took an even stranger turn. Because it wasn't just old messages or past marriages that were creating tension, something happened recently, right in front of thousands of viewers, that made the entire internet say, okay, this is bad. And it all started during a live stream she never should have stayed on. The moment that truly shifted public opinion didn't come from leaked texts or rumors whispered online. It came from a live stream, one that started out harmless, casual, even sweet, until it wasn't. Gypsy and Ken hopped on live to chat with fans, answering questions, laughing, and acting like everything in their world was finally settling down. But then things took a turn so fast you could practically see the mood drop in real time. Gypsy started slurring her words, missing sentences, and openly saying she was pretty sure she reached her limit, but that she was going to keep drinking anyway. Fans watched as her energy shifted from playful to sloppy, while Ken's expression slowly turned into something between disappointment and exhaustion. The longer the stream went on, the more off-balance everything felt. At one point, Ken looked straight into the camera and said, "I'm glad that was all caught on tape," his tone flat and fed up. And before anyone could process what he meant, he ended the live stream completely. The clip went viral within hours. Not because people enjoy watching a messy moment, but because it hinted at the kind of stress bubbling beneath the surface. But the real shock came a week later. Ken revealed that CPS actually showed up at their house. Whether it was a random check or a call triggered by the live stream, nobody knew for sure. What was clear, though, was that it wasn't a light, friendly visit. A caseworker interviewed them separately, walked through their home, took photos, and made notes. Everything had to be reviewed. Every room, every detail, every sign that their child was safe. They passed the check, but that didn't change the reaction from fans. Because the fact that CPS had to get involved at all added a whole new layer of chaos to an already unstable situation. The livestream wasn't just an embarrassing moment that drifted off the internet, it became a permanent red flag. A moment the internet still brings up every time Gypsy talks about her happy family. And you would think something like that would push them to slow down, reflect, maybe even take a break from the spotlight. But Gypsy had other plans, ones that left everyone watching with their jaws on the floor. Because right after discussing CPS, she started talking about wanting baby number 2. After everything, the leaked messages, the last name confusion, the resurfaced screenshots, and the CPS visit, you'd think Gypsy and Ken would take a step back and get their foundation steady, but instead, Gypsy went in the completely opposite direction. In an interview with People magazine, she casually mentioned that she and Ken would love to give Aurora a baby brother. That single sentence sent the internet into an instant meltdown. People couldn't believe it. A second baby? Now? When the relationship already seemed like it was hanging together by threads? The reaction online was immediate and brutal. Fans called the statement emotional whiplash, tone-deaf, and flat-out irresponsible. Some said it felt like she was trying to distract from the drama by fast-forwarding into a picture-perfect family fantasy. Others believed she was rushing into another major life change, the same way she rushed into marriages, breakups, reconciliations, and everything else over the past year. And honestly, the timing couldn't have been worse. She was still dealing with accusations of messaging her ex. Ken was staying suspiciously silent about everything. CPS had just been in their living room inspecting their home. And yet she was publicly talking about expanding the family like none of that mattered. Comment sections filled up with the same concern. How do you talk about a second baby when your first is barely out of diapers and your relationship looks unstable from the outside? Who plans for a new child while dodging cheating rumors? Who imagines a bigger family when you haven't even repaired the cracks in the one you already have? To a lot of viewers, it felt like Gypsy was using the idea of baby number 2 as a bandage, something to cover the growing tension between her and Ken. But instead of calming the situation, it only fueled speculation that he might be reaching his breaking point. And that leads to the one question the internet keeps asking: is Ken quietly preparing to leave? At this point in the story, the internet wasn't just reacting, They were predicting, and the prediction almost everyone shared was the same. Ken might be done, but he's keeping it quiet. What makes fans so sure isn't loud drama or public arguments. It's the silence. Ken hasn't defended himself. He hasn't addressed the messages. He hasn't pushed back on the rumors. He hasn't even corrected the wild theories flying around every corner of social media. Instead, he's done something even more unsettling. He's stayed calm. And in a situation this dramatic calm can look a lot like detachment. People notice that he's posting less, appearing less, and choosing his words more carefully every time he does show up online. It's the kind of behavior that makes viewers wonder if he's already emotionally checked out. Some fans even think he's sticking around just long enough to keep things stable for the baby before quietly stepping away once the timing feels right. And the comment sections are full of people calling out patterns they believe Gypsy is repeating. One viewer wrote that she always wants the perfect partner who cooks, cleans, parents, and compliments her nonstop. And when the reality doesn't match the fantasy, she moves on to the next storyline. Another pointed out that she seems to keep Ryan in her back pocket, refusing to fully close any door just in case the next chapter doesn't work out. But the comment that really hit people the hardest said something many had been thinking but didn't want to say out loud. She creates chaos, everything falls apart, and then she jumps to the next person like nothing happened. And when you look back at the timeline, the fast relationships, the emotional switches, the messages, the live stream, the CPS visit, it's not hard to see why people are connecting the dots. This time, the chaos didn't come from her past or her upbringing or her mother. It came from her choices, her secrets, and her inability to leave old attachments behind. Fans aren't wondering if something will happen anymore. They're waiting to see when. Because if Ken really is preparing to leave, everyone knows one thing for sure. It won't be quiet, it won't be private, and it definitely won't be simple. And that brings everything full circle, right to the edge of a breakup that could explode at any moment. Looking at everything together, it's hard not to see the pattern forming right in front of us. The leaked messages weren't just screenshots. They were the first cracks in a relationship already struggling under the weight of old connections and unresolved history. The last name twist wasn't just a legal technicality, it exposed how tangled her past still is. And the resurfaced conversations, paired with the live stream meltdown and the CPS visit, showed a level of instability that no new baby, no rushed interview, and no polished Instagram caption can hide. Gypsy has spent years trying to rewrite the narrative of her life. After everything she endured growing up, after the trauma she never asked for, she's been chasing something that feels safe, warm, and completely hers. But the truth is, no matter how far she tries to run from her past, it keeps finding a way into every new chapter she starts. Sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively, but always there. And that's why people are watching this situation so closely, not out of cruelty, not out of curiosity alone, but because the pattern is impossible to ignore anymore. Every time things begin to settle, something snaps. Whether it's an ex in the background, a new relationship rushed into too fast, or a moment caught on camera that shouldn't have been public in the first place. It's like she's standing on a tightrope that keeps fraying beneath her feet. Now the question isn't whether the breakup rumors are true, it's whether this will be the moment that finally forces her to confront everything she's been avoiding. Because this time, there's no mother controlling her life, no prison walls shaping her decisions, and no excuse big enough to hide behind. The fallout is hers. The choices are hers. And the consequences are starting to land. If the split with Ken really happens, and at this point, many believe it's only a matter of time, it won't be quiet or simple. It'll be public, it'll be dramatic, and it'll be another story the internet picks apart piece by piece. Maybe it'll even be monetized, just like every chapter before it. But one thing is already certain. This isn't the ending of Gypsy Rose's story. It's another turning point in a life that keeps twisting in ways no one expects. And judging from the way things are going, this won't be the last time we're talking about her. Not even close. If you're loving the tea so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more daily celebrity news and gossip. Drop a comment below. I want to know what you think about this drama. And don't forget to share this video with your friends who live for celebrity updates. We've got so much more coming up, so stay tuned.